tertiary students need more mental health care and support, and this is the call coming from SADAG following 2 student suicides in the Western Cape. The Depression and Anxiety Group says calls for help should not be ignored. SADAG Operations Manager Vanisha Gordhan joins us now to expand on this. And if you need to speak to a counsellor, helpline contact numbers will be, of course, on your screens throughout this conversation. Vanisha, thank you so much for your time and speaking to us about this. How big of a problem is this, particularly in institutions of higher learning?
So, I mean, mental health has been something that has been talked about for many years. But right now, especially after the COVID space, where we've changed our learning spaces, we've gone back to not online learning, sorry. We've gone back to going into class, and we've spent so much time doing online learning. So now this hybrid learning has also become a very different space. It's something to adapt to. So students are struggling. They're also struggling with finances. We know that finances are a huge issue. We knew expectations also are a huge issue. Not only the expectations they have on themselves, but also the expectations their families have on them. And also what the wider world expects, I need to study, I need to complete my degree, and then eventually get a job.
With that being said, Vanisha, we know that there are campus wellness centres, in various institutions of higher learning. Are they receiving, requests for assistance in their volumes, or are students saying they don't find the wellness centres to be resourceful or even to be helpful? Hence, we're seeing the rate of suicides we're seeing at universities.
I think that's something to really be thought of, because if we look at SADAG, right, we had pre-COVID something like 600 to 700 calls a day. Within the first month, those call numbers doubled, and right now we're seeing over 2,500 calls a day. That just means that more people are experiencing symptoms of depression, experiencing symptoms of anxiety, and might not know what it is that they're experiencing. But it's also important to know that the events that we've been through over the last 2 years have been stressful and do impact our mental well-being. So a lot of students are reaching out to their student wellness centers, and I'm sure more of them are reaching out now. But it's also the access of mental health support is also very difficult. We do know that it is very limited, and that's why SADAG has the 24-hour helplines. We've also in the beginning of this year started the peer support group project, which is wonderful because it actually has access. It allows students to access that extra support where they can share their experiences, share their coping skills, and also know that they're not alone.
Yeah, I want to particularly, also just refer to the 2 suicide, deaths that we have, been reporting and seeing in the media. Vanisha, one particular in Stellenbosch University, a student there in the men's race, apparently and allegedly taking his own life. Another being a second-year student being found dead at a woman's residence. And I see a lot of information around the pressure that comes with the workload in first year. How do you think even high schools, matric year, can better prepare, students when they get to this, different culture shocking environment they find themselves in first year, where they even feel an imposter syndrome that, maybe I don't belong here, maybe this is too much for me, yet there's so much that's resting on me succeeding. So if I fail, there's so many people I'm disappointing as well. How do you think high schools can also better prepare learners for this?
I think that's something that's a very important comment that you mentioned, because it is true. The amount of work that they're studying in high school, in matric, is next to nothing that they're experiencing within their first year. So they're going into university spaces, and yes, definitely having a culture shock, because not only are they not in their hometowns or not where they're accustomed to, but they're in different spaces. And, they have to get used to people socially, they have to make friends, they also have to manage this workload. And I think it's so important to and I want to say compartmentalize that aspect and say that, okay, there are tutors available, there are study advisors, there are so many resources, but often students are either a little bit nervous to access those resources or they don't know about them. So just, making that awareness there, creating that awareness. So these are the resources available. These are the things that you can use to also better equip yourself, but also help you doing that step by step.
Right.
Mentors are a lovely space, I think, that can be used for students today.
Absolutely. And I mean, Vanisha, I know you also make mention as SADAG of the reality that a majority of the students coming into the big city are from rural areas. They're coming in for the first time, having to care for themselves for the first time. We've spoken about mentors. We've spoken about the role of, teachers or in high school better preparing students. But what about parents? First of all, do they know that this is the mental state their children are in when they're in varsity? And how can they better be in touch, in communication, and can also almost detect if something is wrong, especially with distance being a factor in this incident?
I think that's a very good factor. And what COVID has also taught us is that we're able to connect wherever we are. We have WhatsApp, we have video calls. Having these open conversations are so important, and I cannot stress that enough. And knowledge is definitely power. So knowing the warning signs, being aware of what they're doing, how they're managing, how do they actually manage stress? How have you experienced that your son, daughter, or sibling has experienced stress? How do they manage it? What are those telltale signs? So it's so important to know the warning signs. How are they sleeping? How are they communicating? Are they isolating themselves? Before they might have been, this very bubbly, talkative person, and now they might have changed. So it's important to know these warning signs. Also, consistently having this conversation. How are you doing today? How are you managing with this different environment in this different space?
Absolutely. I appreciate you speaking to us about this. Vanisha, while we're having a conversation, we still kept the number on our screen. SADAG Suicide Helpline being 0800 567 567. That's Vanisha Gordhan speaking to us. Please do keep in touch, make a call, be in contact. If you are a parent, if you're a loved one, a sister, a brother, a sibling, a friend, check in on your loved ones, especially the strong ones, the ones making the jokes or they come across as they have it together. Check in on them. And those who are also disconnecting from your loved ones, make sure you check in on them and just find out how they're doing. But if you need help yourself, there is help available. That number on your screen, 0800 567 567.